Morning everybody, it's Ian from RDO. Welcome to Thursday, and welcome to Then and Now. So today we are looking at Emerson, Lake and Palmer. We'll look at their first album, look at their last album, and then just go through their albums they come out and just pick out a few tunes and look at a couple of albums. As you know, there's no ranking on this show, but if you want me to do a full E.L.P. album ranking, put it in the comment box and it'll get put on the list. I won't be doing it because it's not obscure enough, but I always do requests for people. I've got some coming up. Now someone's asked me to do one and I said yes, and I've totally forgotten. So if that person's you, can you put a comment in just to remind me? I've had so much going on personally. I've got one of my dogs very poorly, so they're in vet hospital at the moment, so I've got lots on my mind and things slip. Now I did say to that person that I'd pencil it in for the 15th of September. So please let me know. Okay then, let's talk a bit about of prog, bit of E.L.P. Okay, E.L.P. formed in late 69, early 70. When nice keyboardist Keith Emerson and King Crimson bassist and vocalist Greg Lake met. They were both in their respective groups touring together, and they were discussing about forming a band. So when Nice split in March 1970, King Lake left King Crimson and they were in search of a drummer, which they found very difficult. Initially they'd approached Mitch Mitchell from the Jimi Hendrix Experience, who was at a loose end by then, but nothing happened there. But Tony Stratton Smith suggested a chap called Carl Palmer from Atomic Rooster and the Crazy World of Arthur Brown. So that's how Carl come to be part of E.L.P. So they got together, they did that fantastic performance at the Isle of Wight Festival to promote their first album. They stayed arrayed together till about 79, and then they disbanded. Then the band reformed. We had Emerson, Lake and Powell. Then Robert Berry came in, and we've looked at E.L.P. and 3. Then the original 3 got together, made a couple of albums. They did some touring, and they did their final performance in 2010 at the High Voltage Festival, which commemorated the band's 40th anniversary. Sadly, in 2016, Keith Emerson and Greg Lowick died, leaving only Carl Palmer left. So let's have a look at their very first album, titled Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It was produced by Greg Lake and released in November of 1970. We don't have to tell you who's on it because the names, who's on it is in the title, of course. Okay, let's have a look at this album because it is a really good album. Okay, the first track on the debut album is The Barbarian. It's an instrumental. It's got bits of Bela Bartok, which Keith Emerson arranged. I do like the start of this. I love that heavy bass and that Hammond organ. Then he gets that Moog You know, he uses Hammond organ, Moog modularizer, synthesizer, pipe organ. It just sounded great. And then, you know, Keith Emerson was a genius. He starts off, then all of a sudden he gets that piano going, and then Cole Palmer comes in with some delicate drum touches, and then it goes off into another heavy, proggy improvisation. It is really, really good. Great track. Second track, Take a Pebble. I love this. It starts off with that fantastic piece of piano, and I like how he gets the plectrum and plucks it against the piano strings inside the piano. Then we get that middle bit with the acoustic guitar with Greg Lake, and then people start clapping. Everyone's having a really great time, and then all of a sudden it goes into that jazz improv. I don't know if that is someone actually sat down and wrote that, or they just went off on one. I really don't know. And you got to remember as well, the vocal in this is great. Greg Lake's singing in this is fantastic. Great track. Then we get my favourite track on the album, Knife Edge. I love that deep bass at the beginning, and I just like how the keyboards weave into that bass line. Knife Edge is a great track live. Fantastic track. I love that track. Always have. I just love that. I do love that start because it has a little bit of bark in there as well. So all that classical stuff keeps coming through. Okay, then we flip it over to side 2, and we get Three Fates, a cloth or whatever, I don't know. This has got a grand entrance, of course. He got keyboards, church organs. Keith Emerson's just having a fab time. Then he ditches all that, gets the piano out, and then we go into some more jazz improv again. I'm just not quite sure if it's planned or not, but it always sounds great. Then we get Tank. This is just a jam to me. I don't know if they says, "Oh, what should we do now?" Or they just record and they like it and they put it down. I mean, it's just good old-fashioned prog, and I love it. It's very hard to describe these tracks because they do all sound very improv. You know, bit of a jam man. Then we do get a structured song. We get Lucky Man. Now, this was written by Greg Lake when he was 12 years old. Very first song he ever wrote. It's a great song. It's got a great little story to it. And Keith Emerson's keyboards in this is terrific. Really adds to this great song. And for someone that, you know, he wrote it when he was 12 years old, and it's superb. And that's all you get on the album because these tracks are so long. Great album, and everyone loved it. It was reviewing in Christ Goo's Record Guide of rock albums of the 70s. This was done in 1991. Robert Christgau said, "This opens with The Barbarian, a keyboard showpiece." And then in brackets he put, "Not slight to all failing and booming underneath. Repeats with shifts of the tempo, time, key and dynamics of beloved three bozos." I don't like how he's called them bozos, because they were odd and they were quite arrogant, but they had a lot of reason because they were damn good. Did very well in all over the world, charting. Australia got to number 9, German 7, Dutch 4, Norwegian 18, UK 4, Canada 17, and US 18. Went gold in the USA and the UK. Sold more copies in America. Sold 500,000 to 100,000 over here. Great album. So let's look at it as we do on this show. Song quality, great. Well, they're not songs, are they? They're just songs with a few words in, but the quality is fantastic. Even if some of it is improv. So I give it song quality 4 out of 5. Production, I would say, considering this was recorded probably in 1970, it sounds pretty good. I mean, I've got the original and the remaster. I mean, the remaster's fantastic, but there's something about that original recording, and production is fabulous. It sounds amazing. So I'm going to give it the top mark, 5 out of 5. Reception. Now, looking at them figures, it was well received by everybody. So again, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 for that, because it was well received. So it gives it an RTO ranking of 14 out of 15, which is a very, very good score for your very first album. So let's get in that time machine, as we always do on a Thursday morning, and zoom 24 years to 1994 to In the Hot Seat. Yes, In the Hot Seat. Released on the 27th of September 1994, and it was produced by Keith Olsen. Oh dear, I don't like slagging off albums at all, but this was an absolute stinker. So let's have a look at these tracks. Okay, the first track, Hand of Truth. It is one of the better tracks on the album. It's got them tendencies to go back to the heydays of E.L.P. It's not a bad track. Then we get Daddy. Now Daddy is pretty good, one of Greg Lake's finest tracks. But after that, this album just goes downhill like a cheese roll, big cheese rolling down the hill very fast. So next track is One by One. This track starts promising, and then it just fizzles like a candle that's been burning forever. We have little bits of nice keyboard in it, but nothing that really gets me. It's just that horrible mid-90s rock dribble that they brought out. Oh dear, I've got a frog in my throat. Oh, that's better. Okay, next track on this album is called Heart on Ice. It's listenable, that's all I'll say. Don't play this album very often. I put it on the other day just to have a quick listen, and it reminded me why I don't listen to it. Thin Line. This is just terrible. Drum machines for Cole Palmer. What's going on there? No. Stop it. Next track. This is a Bob Dylan cover, The Man in the Long Black Coat. Now, we've reviewed a few covers by Bob Dylan, and I've always said the cover is better than Bob's. Not in this case. This is an awful version of it. It's lost everything that Bob Dylan wrote about it. It's just doesn't sound like this funky 80s, 90s dribble. Change. Listening to this, I think the band, you can just tell in their playing, they've had enough, and I think they had. They've got fed up with this. Give me a reason to stay. Yeah. Rule number 1 though, don't get someone else to write you a song and you perform it, because it just doesn't match. The words are great. Lyrics are really good. Got no problem with the lyrics. But put it in the E.L.P. machine, it's not a prog track. It's a nice, I'd say it's a nice ballad, nice steady ballad. Gone too soon. Yes. Just 90s pop rock. Doesn't sound right. Doesn't sound like E.L.P. none so whatever. Then Street Wall. Oh, there's bits of the old days, but it's still a pile of old do. It's not the best track. And then what sort of sparkled my eyes when I got this, a studio version of Pictures of an Exhibition. And all I'll say, this is a condensed version. It's 15 minutes and it's just a pointless waste of plastic. I'm not even going to go through the tracks because we all know the tracks. It was so disappointing. I think I've only ever played this actual bit about 5 times, and I played it the other day. I had to switch it off and I thought I'll have to listen to the proper version to get my head round it all. This was a total flop. Keith Olsen, the producer, is not very impressed with it, and even Carl Palmer said it was a load of rubbish. So if Carl Palmer thinks it's a load of rubbish, it is. It was a total flop. So song quality, well, apart from Daddy and the first track, can't even remember. You see, you can tell I don't play this album. I don't even know can't remember what it's called. Hand of Truth. There we go. They're the only things worth listening to, really. So song quality, 2 out of 5. Production. The production, okay, it's that 90s sound, but Keith Olsen is a very, very good producer, and he tried to make good of a bad thing. So for Keith's persistence and being professional and trying to produce something that's good, I'll give it a 4 out of 5, just for Keith's persistence. Reception, well, as you know, it flopped. It wasn't. No one hardly brought it. I did. What a fool I was. So I'll only give it a 1 out of 5. So this is I think this must be the lowest ranking we've given on it then and now. So it gets an RTO ranking of 7. Very disappointing album. But they did make some good live albums during that period. We'll have a look at them one day. As I said, if you want me to rank the whole of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, just put in the comments, Ian, can you rank the whole albums, and we'll get it done. Because it's easy to put together, because I know these tracks like the back of my hand. So let's have a look at some of their better albums. So after their debut album in 1970, up come Tarkus, 1971. This is a great album. Tarkus itself, it's one of my favourite tracks. I'm not going to say where it is because I'm doing a show in a few weeks' time on my favourite prog tracks, so you'll find out more about this. But I'll tell you, I love about this. I just love the drumming and Keith Emerson. They're just absolutely brilliant together. They play off each other such well. It's got some great bass bits in Tarkus. It's just a terrific track. Then we get Jeremy Bender. I like that. It's a short little ditty. We get Bitches Crystal, another classic song, great stuff. Keith Emerson's magic on this. Then we get the hymn, The Only Way. I love how Keith takes a bit of classical music or a hymn and really takes it apart. Terrific vocal from Greg on that. Infinite Space. Very jazzy this is. The interplay between Keith Emerson and Greg Lake on this is superb. Can't think of I love listening to this, especially under the headphones, because you can imagine them in the studio playing off each other, and it's fantastic. A Time and a Place. The start reminds me of Knife's Edge. Got a great Hammond organ on this, really good track. Are You Ready, Eddie? Yes. It's alright, I suppose. It's great rock and roll, but poor old Keith, he just can't, you can't hold him down, can you? He just goes off on one. And unfortunately, Keith going off on one on his keyboards doesn't work in rock and roll. So that was that album, well received, one of the classics. Then they released pictures of an exhibition, the live masterpiece. It's a great piece of classical music, and this interpretation by the band was fantastic. I play this a lot. I love it. I mean, I do like the beginning, Promenade, and the Great Gates of Kiev. Highlights of that album. Then we get another cracking album, Trilogy from 1972. You got the Emerson Mi'kmaq. Love the drumming in this. Some of Carl Palmer's finest drumming. Of course, you've got Mr. Emerson just blasting away there. Then you get that little bit in the middle, that fugue. This just shows what a great pianist Keith Emerson is. Tell he's got classical training. While we're just listening to this, there's 3 peas in a pod when it comes to keyboards: Keith Emerson, Rick Wakeman, and John Lord. And sometimes you could sort of mention Ken Hensley, but these 3 to me are the best keyboard players ever. You know, we have produced some great musicians, 3 keyboardists for the highest quality. Then you get the Endless Enigma Part 2. It's basically a bit carrying on from the Keith Emerson's little bit in fugue, and the rest of the band come in absolutely fantastic. Then we get From Beginning. Nice tune, always like this, bit funky, nice acoustic guitar, bit of bongos in there. Terrific shot. The Sheriff, solid track. Then we get one of my favourite bits of music. It's Hoedown from the Aaron Copland piece. I just love what E.L.P. do to classical music. They give it that extra bite. This piece is fantastic. I love that start. That start is fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Then we get Trilogy. Oh, the start of this. All keyboards are blazing. He loves it. Great. Then we get Living Sin, yet another great track. And then we get Abandon's Bolero. Again, a fantastic piece of classical music. Put it in the E.L.P. machine and you come up with some masterpiece. Beautiful, beautiful version. Then we have another album come out in 1973. I'm not going to say how much I love it because it might spoil if we do a ranking, but it's a great album. Opens up with the hymn Jerusalem. Again, give it to Keith Emerson and he produces a little bit of a masterpiece. Then you get Toccata, an adaptation of Ginastra's first piano concerto fourth music. This has got some blistering Carl Palmer drums. Some of the best he's ever done. Again, very, very good drummer. A lot of people think he's a bit arrogant and a bit cocky and not as good as he is. He's very good, and I love how he plays the drums in the traditional way, holding his stick. I'll do it with a pencil, holding it like that. That's why he gets so much freedom and movement. Superb. Then we get a lovely track from Greg Lake, Still You Turn Me On. I love them little bits of bass and keyboards in this terrific, terrific piece of music. Benny the Bouncer. Now, This is probably one of the worst things they ever did. There's even stuff in the hot seat that's better than this. Don't talk about that, I just don't like it. Then we get a fine piece of music. It's the brilliant Carnival. The First Impression, I love the start of that. That keyboards and the cowbells and drums. Fantastic, fast, frantic singing from Greg. Great stuff, love it. Then we get my favourite piece, of course, part 2. Start opens up with them lines. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Come inside, come inside. Absolutely brilliant. For those of us that live in the UK and of a certain age, if we remember, we had a TV show called The Generation Game, and when Jim Davidson, the comic, took over, he used this as the theme tune because he is a huge E.L.P. fan. I can remember going, wow, bit of E.L.P. on a Saturday tea time. Then we have the Second Impression. This is just improv to me, and I love how it ends. It just goes off into keyboards having a bit of a meltdown. Then the Third Impression, nice way to end it, built up into a nice crescendo. Okay, then we had a little bit of a break. I think they were so busy touring, and then they brought out the Works Volume 1 in 1977. I must admit, this is a little bit of self-indulgence. There's only a few highlights on here. C'est V, great piece of work, one of his finest from Greg Lake. Then we get, of course, the brilliant fanfare, The Common Man. I remember this coming out as a single. I remember the video on Top of the Pops when they're in that stadium and they got the coats on. I thought they looked so cool, and I got to hear the whole thing as well, and it just blew me away. I love that middle bit. It's just a brilliant version. Fantastic. Then the other great song on here is Pirates. You feels like you're on a voyage with the pirates. The way the music's arranged, the storyline, I love listening to this. It's just a fantastic song. Then they brought out Volume 2, and again, there's not much on this that really stands out for me. Tiger in a Spotlight's great. I love that ragtime piano from Keith Emerson, absolutely brilliant. Some great drumming from Carl Palmer on that. Then there's the track Brain Salad Surgery, quite funky for an E.L.P. song, but I love it. And then we get Keith Emerson's interpretation of Scott Joplin's Maple Leaf Rag. That is absolutely blinding. And the other good thing on here is one of my favourite Christmas songs, I Believe in Father Christmas. I remember it coming out as a kid, and I love it, always do. I'm not going to say too much about it because nearer Christmas, I'm going to. Obviously there'll be a Christmas retro ranking, and I think this one will feature in it. So we will leave it at that, shall we? And it's not Christmas yet. We don't want to think about Christmas. Okay, then they had another break, and then come the terrible Ludge Beach with one of the worst covers ever. You know how much I feel about that. But there is one piece of music on there that's really good, and that's the Memoirs of an Officer and Gentleman. It's not too bad. It goes back to the heydays in places, but it's overproduced. Very 70s, but I don't mind listening to that. But the rest of the album, I don't care. I never hear it again. Then they split up, and then we had the Emerson, Lake and Powell and 3, but they got back together, and the first album they made since 1978 was Black Moon from 1992. There's some quite good bits on this. 3 outstanding tracks though. Paper Blood, I love it. It's quite a rocker. It's got a nice harmonica start. One of the better tracks on the album. And then my favourite piece from Romeo and Juliet, The Dance of the Nights. I've always liked this piece of music, and for those that like it in layman's terms, if you watch The Apprentice in the UK, this is the theme tune. Now, I've always loved this piece of music. I first heard it at school, in my lower school. So when we used to have our school assemblies, so that to muffle the noise when we all charging back to the classrooms, our music teacher used to play a bit of classical music every day, and she used to tell us about it and all that sort of thing, which was okay. And when she played when we heard this, I just loved it, and I must have been about a bit older. I'd say I'd be about 8, and I've loved that piece of music from then onwards. I might actually do a thing on classical music one day, because I love some of the classical music. And then the other song on here that's really, really good is Farewell to Arms. It's very much in the vein of Pirates, and it's a song about peace, and it's pretty good. I like that. And then of course we had the dreaded Hot Seat. Well, a bit of they were good in their day. They're probably one of the best prog bands that have come out of this country. I think there's no sitting on the fence. You're either an E.L.P. fan or you're not, and I am big E.L.P. fan. Okay, that's all for Then and Now this week. But we're carrying on with that little prog theme. For the next show, I'm going to be ranking all the Genesis album covers. And again, I'm not going to do a ranking on them, but well, if you want me to rank them, we've done their live albums, but we haven't done their studio albums. So if you want me to rank Genesis studio albums, you know what you need to do. So that's all for now. I will see you all a bit later. Take care for now.